Ride with them. Ride with them.
Hello and welcome to the Alwaysdale podcast. I'm here live. My name is Santiago with Alex and the one and only Jo Hel.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
We're super excited. He's not only a stage director for Bring a Love, he's also the co-owner of Bring a Love and has helped produce some amazing events throughout the years, including Funky Town. He's also known as DJ Home Cooking, throwing down funky beats, including at Dr. Fresh the other day opening. And he is an instructor of guitar, voice, and piano. So, you know, if you want to learn some shit, go to him. He also has a side hustle. He just sets up tents for JW Tent and Sound, making sure you're keeping your tent life safe. And yeah, we're super excited to have him.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Love you.
He is daddy.
Yes, and before we get started, we have a really special announcement. We just got sponsored by Unity Underwear, so we're super excited. Which is like the comfiest, coziest underwear ever, which is so sick because we just love this underwear. And then they reached out to us to shout them out on the podcast and give you guys a special deal. So you get 20% off Unity Underwear. This underwear is made from bamboo. It's eco-friendly. And it's like super premium and nice. A lot of people really like it. So yeah, check it out. We'll put the link in the description. And yeah, stay cozy with some Unity Underwear.
Even if you don't wear underwear, you will want to wear it.
You're going to wear underwear.
It's the best underwear, bro.
Just hand this out at Bring Your Love. Like, you should put these on.
They can convert you to underwear wearing.
You can put them on wherever you want to. You don't have to put them between your legs.
Oh, they can be outerwear also.
Yeah.
That's the best way to advertise them, I find, if you just walk around in them all the time.
Think of how many more people you can reach if they're outerwear as well as underwear.
We're thinking. So
I guess it would be overwear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, good. So we like to start off these podcasts by like a quick interrogation. We go back and forth in our stupid or seriously stupid segment where we ask one stupid question, one serious question in 60 seconds, and you have to see how many you get through. So I forget the total of the last one, but it was a lot. It was like 12. I don't know. It was a decent amount, and we just go back and forth. There's a timer, and then you see what we can get through. You know? Do you think you're ready?
Sounds like a party.
It sounds like a party. You know?
He can keep up. He plays drum and bass.
He plays drum and bass.
Keep up.
So yeah, do you want to start?
Yeah. Timer for a minute.
Exactly.
Okay. And go. If you were a dog, what breed would you be?
What is that huge Irish one? Irish Wolfhound?
Irish Wolfhound, right on. What's the best song ever?
James Brown, Pop's Got a Brand New Bag.
Ooh.
Are you a wook?
Yes, definitely.
What makes a good song?
Eat for your feet, groove for your moves.
Ooh.
If you had a time machine, would you kill Hitler?
That's a pretty deep existential question.
That was a stupid one.
Would it create some sort of space-time chasm that destroys all of humanity?
You don't know.
We don't know.
I needed the answer.
Yeah, I'd probably kill him.
Good answer.
If you had to pick between DJing or doing events for the rest of your life, which one would you do?
Depends on the crowd.
Ooh.
Do you believe in physics?
Yes.
Oh, that's it.
That was it. That's all we got through. You got too deep. But yeah, you did really great. Thank you so much. We learned a lot about you.
You would kill Hitler, but you believe in physics. So it doesn't line up.
Was there anything else I want to ask?
It's like, if you get the opportunity, you probably want to murder that guy. Like, murdering is not good, but, you know.
I don't know. I read such shit on Facebook. He doesn't sound like he's that bad. I don't know.
Oh, yeah?
Quote that one.
Yeah, exactly.
He copied Charlie Chaplin's mustache. That was lame.
You know?
Yeah, that was pretty lame. Like a way worse version of Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah. He didn't have as much swag. His
Not
swag
nearly
was
as
pretty
funny. I've seen his speeches. Not very funny.
No. Yeah,
They would have been better like as silent movies, I think.
Definitely.
his stand-up career was shit.
Yeah, definitely. Way too aggressive.
Trash.
One of the questions I had was, where'd you get that necklace? It's super interesting.
Oh, this is a person I killed.
Jesus Christ. Was that when you went back in
go.
time and killed Hitler?
Yeah.
You kept a necklace.
When he was 1 inch tall. Not a fair fight. This is from Nelson from the Love of Shiva in Nelson. Shout out. I always get my skull necklaces from them.
Sweet.
They actually kill people for me, and then
Wow,
Oh,
well, that's
so-
efficient. At least you don't have blood on your hands specifically. Great, that's awesome. Well, thank you for participating in that. We just love. We love to get started where you got started, aka like when you were born. But like, what were your first influences into music in general? As you're growing up, and then kind of take us through a journey of how you kind of got into playing instruments, and then kind of to where you are now.
So everything was kind of rock and roll up until I was about 29.
Ooh.
So, pardon me. I got into instruments right away. My dad was a music major. He was a music teacher. He at one point was a music professor, teaching
Whoa.
band, teaching choir, teaching all kinds of things. He did a master's in, I think, opera singing. So music was very, very
Jesus.
big at home. Like we always had all kinds of instruments. I started piano when I was probably 4 or 5. A little bit. Started lessons when I was, I think, 6 or 7. Switched over to the guitar when I was 12. And so I always did a whole ton of music. In college, I played sports for a couple of years, and I was only did music a little bit because I was into sports, knowing that probably my body would inevitably break down, and then it did, and that's when I got pretty heavily into playing with a band, playing the guitar.
Nice.
Eventually, to a point where it actually brought some money in, where I could do it as a job. Obviously, at first, it's like any other musical performance. You start off in a dingy place for free. But that's what led up, when I was doing my original stuff as a rock band, it was already home cooking.
Yeah.
So the idea behind home cooking was already around. It was kind of a natural transference when I went to production and DJing, sort of in the post-Shambhala world, mostly because I had gotten into self-production and these kinds of synthesizer that sort of helped me just transfer into music styles. But
Do you remember what the first song outside of rock and roll that grab your attention, or what
the very first
converted you?
electronic music song that I had to admit was awesome.
Had you admit it against your will?
Oh yeah, because I hipstered against it, just like
I
every other
feel
band
you.
that eventually gave me the finger when they found out I became a DJ.
That doesn't take 6 people.
Yeah, so I was the same amount of hipster as they all were, and was just like,
Fuck you.
well, when you don't know about electronic music, you don't know about the depth of it either. You usually know the face value, which is like some sort of commercial with German techno or something. German techno sucks.
Kraftwerk?
So you're like, oh,
Fuck is
techno
this?
sucks. That's what I probably believed. But I remember seeing a commercial that had the Alex Claire Diplo collaboration. Closer. Too Close. That's what it's called. It's like a collaboration between like a sort of folk singer / guitar guy and Diplo, straight dubstep.
Dope.
And it's actually insane. It played on the radio, on like pop radio and stuff.
Wow.
It managed to break through. And it's a full-on dubstep beat. It's like heavy, wobbly. So yeah, it just had so much, it was so musically adept that I was like, holy crap. So that was the first one that I remember looking it up and downloading it and stuff. I didn't understand what dubstep meant at the time, but definitely, yeah, that was the first one where I couldn't hipster about it. This is just a computer, it was insane vocals,
Yeah.
crazy synth design where it was you don't just have a keyboard that you press a key and that's what it does. There's some serious shit going on.
That's fascinating, especially because Diplo is on so many different types of tracks, and recently he's been doing so many different explorations. So it just makes me wonder how many people are now maybe getting reintroduced to the scene through him.
And Diplo even played Shambhala with Mark Ronson in the Fractal Forest.
Oh yeah, I saw
Opposite
that.
that you would expect from
Sounds insane.
Diplo.
Was it good? Did you see him?
I don't remember because that is a lot of shit going on.
Fair.
And I was
It is a festival.
focused on a handful of other things during that part of the night. But I remember it being a bunch of wild shows. He drove in with the fucking white Escalade into the Mudfest.
Oh my
And I
god.
remember getting temporarily kicked off the stage. They're like, get out of the way for Diplo's fucking Escalade.
Historic. Holy
Sounds
fuck.
fantastic. Oh my god. That's crazy. And so in your come up, you're describing a post Shambhala kind of era. Was there a big chasm after you went to your first Shambhala? And what was that like?
After I went to the first Shambhala, I was aware of a whole bunch of other depths of music and production that I was into.
And how old were you when you went? When you first,
29.
29? Whoa.
Yeah, 2014 was the first one. And I went with like a hipster attitude, just it looked like the best party ever. And I thought, probably most of the music will just be fucking shitty techno.
You go with that perspective, it's gonna be shit.
Yeah, I figured it was an awesome party, and Folkfest was insane. But
Yeah.
Folkfest was exactly my scene at the time. There's a ton of instruments everywhere. Like you could just go walk up to
many
somebody's piano
works.
and rock out on the piano.
So
and
many
it turns
works
into
around.
a crazy thing, or you could just bang the drum and create a big party. But it was much more developed and just much more musical than I realized. But the first year was mostly just understanding the reason for dance music and dancing rather than music as some sort of just strictly band to crowd kind of deep emo connection. Like, I was a child of the 90s where pop music even died for a while, and all there was bands and rock and roll. Like, pop music wasn't even called pop; it was called soft rock. In the 90s, pop music was so ostracized that like 94 played light rock radio, and it was like Celine Dion and stuff.
Like,
there was still like dance pop, like Spice Girls and like fucking Celine Dion and things like that. But it was literally referred to as light rock because if it was pop, they would have gotten ostracized for it.
Wow.
Because rock bands owned the world for a long time. So at that time, the way you consume music was way different. It was expensive and it was hard to find. You'd have to listen to the radio to hear a song. You'd actually phone and request a fucking song for like a half hour just to try to hear it and stuff.
Nice.
You couldn't just look up information about bands. You'd have to like tape pop-up video and like read a magazine and stuff. So it was way, way different just type of consumption. Going to a concert was a full song, and then they talk to the crowd, and like the song stops, and everyone cheers, and they talk about the next song, and they leave. It's a story into a story, and then solos and performance and jams and shit. Way different than the idea of being about dancing in the dance crowd and having continual things that are to create momentum and stuff. So that's the main thing I noticed, that the first Shambhala was just the value of that, the reason for it. And it was the second Shambhala where I was like, okay, I have to become a DJ. It was unfortunately an F-word show, not because it was a fucking insane show, and F-word was awesome. Unfortunately, that doesn't age well being a Datsik fan. He became slightly less popular in the somewhat near future after that. But this was like brand new. F-word was unknown, and they were like throwing a huge show at the Village out of nowhere where people were like, how can you give that good of a slot to F-word? It's pretty much the best show ever at the Village. It's just crazy bass house breaks, insanity. That's when I was like, okay, something's going on there that's way more than like the basic DJs that are mostly hanging out dancing.
That's super sick.
Yeah, that's when I like.
And then from there,
officially
did you get gear? Did you get instruction? How'd you go?
Alman lent me his gear for a couple of weeks. The first thing I ever did was actually
it was
in
it
an
vinyl?
airport.
No, it was like straight up.
No, it was like very close to the same controller I have.
Serato stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
The first thing I did was I was in an airport coming back from France for like fucking 8 hours and just had nothing to do, and downloaded a little DJ thing on my iPad because it was after that Shambhala, and in my head I was like, I bet you this James Brown song would mix with this Treasure Fingers song.
Cool.
And so I just got that on my iPad and just was like mashing it up back and forth, and I was like, oh fuck, that works. Turns out it wasn't actually like what conventional mixing is at all, but that's how I've done it ever since anyway, is more of the way that you would on a shitty iPad program. But Alman lent me his thing, and I just loved it right away because I was doing a bunch of stuff that I hadn't really heard that I knew was weird, which was a lot of like rock and roll and old stuff on top of new things. So I got into it pretty right away with that. I was already producing music that was going to make more sense for a DJ space anyways. Like, I eventually want to bring live instruments into the mix and stuff.
Cool.
I don't see a point, unless you're the headliner, in bringing in a huge rig that takes 45 minutes to set up, that you need to do a sound check and stuff. If you're going to be, in some little tiny booth hidden behind a huge set of projections, and there's somebody way more important than you. But if I can get to a point where I'm headlining, I'll eventually do some singing, some guitar and stuff along with it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then how's production been like? Have you had some songs come out, or what's?
Oh yeah, I've never DJed a set that doesn't have a bunch of my stuff in it. It's usually remixes.
Sick.
I put in some originals sometimes. It's just the last year I had so much time because of COVID. I had so much studio time that I reached a point where I was peaking in my understanding of limiters, compressors, EQ, etc., where I was just mad at all the music I made because it sounded like composition is where I want it to be, but the sound is just too shitty. It comes out finished too shitty because of all these issues with this. So for the last year, I kind of pulled all my original stuff that I've been reworking as I've been taking the mixing and mastering classes, so that at least things are applied the same.
Nice.
Because the best I was ever going to get to was a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10 end production. Where I was working so hard on composition and stuff and still getting this not full sound, this not, over compressed or prickly or too flat or scooped or whatever. So now I should have a whole bunch of stuff coming out in the coming months.
Sweet.
I've just been revamping all of it because a lot of it is literally just a question of going and fixing all the compressors, and the EQ and the limiter is just set way wrong.
Yeah.
And that makes an enormous difference right away. And, about an hour of work and each song can get massively upgraded. But
Amazing.
Have you ever had someone master your stuff before or sent it over?
yeah, if it's original stuff, I'll pay someone to master it. If it's a remix that I'll never make a penny off of, then I'll self-master it because it's close enough. But
Yeah.
like that Dancing in the Moonlight one is a remix that
Oh, cool. Right on.
for example.
Yeah, he dropped that Dr. Fresh. It was very cool. And we had to mix into it, which was not as good.
I loved watching that. I was losing my shit because that's like one of my favorite songs of
Take
all time.
that, you bastards.
And you guys, it really, the weird house beat that you dropped over it just did not mix at all. But
But no, we made it work.
it worked. It worked out. There was no way. There was nothing you could mix into that was going to sound good.
And like,
After a literally 70s song.
At 9:59, I was like, okay, this will be an easy song to mix into. And then you're like, you gotta do 15 more minutes. And I was like, oh shit. And then I remember also asking, I was like, hey, you guys better in like 30 seconds or in 2 minutes? And you said 2 minutes. So I was like, oh shit, I got nothing here.
Dancing in the moonlight.
I'm definitely gonna go for it on this song because I know that like it for sure has never played within those walls before.
Well, I think Citizen dropped Dancing in the
Rapido
Moonlight
Citizen.
drill remix. I've heard it.
That's what I think.
Chief Keef for Dancing in the Moonlight.
Well, that one might be fire. I actually want that. That sounds dope.
Yeah, I would listen to that too.
But yeah, so now that you mention it, there has been a number of times where people are like, you can't even fucking mix in after home cooking. He always has some sort of weird old ass.
It is what it is. No, I'm really glad you brought in that style, and I think
I love that
the
song.
funkiness kind of
So
fits
good.
because Dr. Fresh has its own kind of funkiness to it.
Well, and I knew that it was early.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to drop a bunch of heaters.
Yeah,
when
and make us
you
look
guys
bad.
then have
Yeah.
to play at 10:15. I mean, not even bad. It's just then you guys have to play at 10:15, and it's like, so what? Now you guys are gonna start dropping the ultimate bass house, and then by midnight, everyone's ears
Bored.
are just
Yeah. I guess
which
really
can
important.
be cool, I guess, actually, but.
I think as an opener, it's really important to make sure that you temper your,
Yeah,
your
you
sound a
want
little
nice
bit when you're.
crescendo of the night.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so if you keep it funky, generally you can get people kind of interested and work them into heavier stuff.
Hell yeah,
Nice.
I agree.
So you go to Shambhala 2014. You go back 2015. You become a DJ. You've made that masterful step.
Well, like I didn't actually become a DJ for a couple of years after. That's
got
when
in
I
that
decided I was going to do it. I started in 2018 actually.
Cool.
And it happened really quick from there. But from 2015 to 17, my band actually had really, really gotten over the hump. And that's when I was doing it professionally full time.
Nice.
So I
And
knew
what
that
was-
I was eventually
what was
going to
your band
have to
called?
become a DJ. Well, the Home Cooking was the original one. And then my cover band was called The Durs.
You had a cover
is,
band? Like,
yeah.
who would you cover? We just
We
flurry
did.
of covers?
We started as a Jimi Hendrix cover band,
Shut
and
the
we
fuck
did
up.
like Jimi Hendrix,
Whoa.
Beatles, Led Zeppelin, The Doors was our
my
primary
childhood.
thing. And then we started doing all kinds of shit. We do like Bob Seger and CCR and James Brown, and we'd sometimes bring in trumpets and do like Cat Empire
Fuck
and bring in
yes.
pianos and
Cool.
we do all kinds, Tragic Lip, Chili Peppers, just lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. And where would you
We
get?
played a lot.
Where would you play? Where would you get booked and stuff?
Our favorite place was Garage Cafe because it would just be packed.
Like
It
Le
was
Garage,
Like
the
St.
French-
Boniface?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there was a while where Garage was like one of the best spots to play as a band because you could have a full house pretty regularly. People were there to see the band.
Nice.
There was a nice band culture there.
R.I.P.
Yeah, it's sad.
Sad.
Where did we play a lot? We played at Shannon's downtown.
Hey, Tequila Tuesday.
And yeah, you get insane crowds at Shannon sometimes.
Yeah,
too. That was wild.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd play dingy bars. When I was doing it full time, I was also in an old man band, and that's where we got most of our gigs. Literally 65-year-old guys, not like
Yes.
old like me. Like I had to miss practice because of my granddaughter's 10th birthday.
Good for him, though. What a G. Like, don't miss your granddaughter's birthday, bro.
Yeah, let's
true.
shout out.
He's a committed family man.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I played with the old guys, they were all in bands for like 40 years. So it was like,
Wow.
I'm going to become a way stronger musician if I play with these guys. They did 40 songs a night, which
Wow.
usually you do 25, and suddenly these old guys are like, oh yeah, we do 40. You just don't have any breaks. What the fuck? Because nobody's getting drunk and like wheeling the crowd in the old man band. You're just playing tunes, going to sleep. So we would play like Legions and like shit bars. Like we played the Woodbine.
Yo, the
and, like, LaSalle
Woodbine.
Hotel and stuff.
Oh,
I
no,
joke
not
about-
LaSalle.
A joke about getting married at the Woodbine one day.
I
That sign is so
think I
aesthetic.
was molested.
Oh no, Jesus.
Like there are some very handsy crowds, and you're
Creepy.
like when you're playing guitar, you're like right on the railing, and
Oh
they're
boy. Oh boy.
like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
It's an experience.
there's a reason why it's a dingy, scary place.
Yeah.
That's a rap.
But they have, they have booze, they have a beer.
The people who get kicked out of other bars, they just are allowed to roam free.
At the Woodbine. I think that's their ad. I've seen a.
The outcast roam free. Could be their niche. I could dig that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
We'll let you play VLTs here.
Yeah. So from there, how did you start getting involved in events and into Bring Your Love and stuff like that?
Bring Your Love came when I got started. I actually was pretty lucky. I got a few gigs. Like Amin lent me his thing, and I was like, sweet, I'm gonna try and make a set with a bunch of like classic rock and funk and stuff. And then I put it on SoundCloud, and it did pretty good. It got like 500 plays right away,
Nice.
which like as a non-existent thing, it was like, okay, sweet, that is going pretty well. And then Amin, like my buddy, showed a promoter named maybe Tony. Anyways, he was putting on some shows with Shambhala guys. There was A-Skills and there was K-Lab coming. And so he showed him this SoundCloud and he's like, check this guy out. You should put him on to open for these guys. He's a funky guy.
Cool.
So yeah, right away I got to play for K-Lab and A-Skills at
Yo,
Footwork.
Nice.
And those were sold out shows. So that was like pretty sick. His first gig I got to play sold out show. I did not tell them that it was my first gig.
That's hilarious.
Hey, what's up? Here, I'll plug into the.
Hell yeah.
I'll do the mic with the thing.
This guy seems like a pro. He knows, what
He knows
he's
his
doing.
shit. Fake it till you make it,
And
baby.
then, yeah, I didn't know I had my cell phone in my vest pocket. And so sometimes I'd lean over and it would hit the fader and just like turn the music off.
No. Yeah. I've definitely had that happen before with something like, I don't know what, something hanging and just hits the fader and you're just like, oh shit.
I've had that happen too.
Yeah, it's always the last thing you check when you're like troubleshooting. Like, why is it off? Fantastic. That's so
But
sick.
yeah, so that was really lucky, and it was kind of just having good friends in the right place, and also that they had booked these performers, and then there wasn't a super developed scene in Winnipeg for guys doing that kind of thing. So it's also just kind of luck of the fact that I was one of the few even available ones that sort of made sense for like straight fractal multi-genre funky guys.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then, so that led to, did you meet Chris and that?
Yeah, so Chris was there. That's where I met him, was at those couple of shows. And he told me about his birthday thing. And I was like, yeah, I'll do the stage setup. And he's like, Sure, whatever.
So much confidence. I think
He was definitely very busy. Like suddenly the work piled up for the couple days.
This
before.
was the first Bring Your Love.
The very first was just a shack, and so I
Bring your
just told
shack.
him, I was like, here, I'll decorate the stage. Just let me be in charge of the stage. And since then he's kind of run the like slotting artist side, and I've run the stage kind of decor design side of things as far as the show goes.
Sick.
So how many people were at the
out.
first Bring Your Love? Like
I'd say
paint a picture
50,
for me.
I'd say 50. A lot of them were directly DJs.
An all DJ
Like
party.
it was the same stage that's there, but it was just a little shack that's now been raised up on stilts and with a massive frame around it and 4 extra add-ons.
Yeah.
So it was just an 8x12 shack, not even raised, sitting on cinder blocks, and like a 5,000 watt sound system on the fucking shitty tripods with blue tarps over it. And it's
Yes.
an unpainted shack. But eventually we stapled a ton of tapestries over it and stuff. And we needed a mushroom to decorate it, but we had nothing left but cardboard. And somehow I cut a mushroom out of cardboard and burnt it with a lighter, and like it turned really fucking good.
Nice.
I'm not claiming to be a good artist on this. This was a fluke. I was like, this is probably a good idea. And we were like, holy shit. Like, Heinrich still has it somewhere in his room. I think.
Just a cardboard.
So we
cutout
had
of
an
mushroom.
actually pretty good mushroom decor thing. And people kept bringing, like, lights and stuff, where we ended up having a couple lights. And it was kind of cool. But
Yeah.
it just really sparked the enthusiasm. The next one, we were able to charge, like, $30 or $50 or something like that. So
Yeah.
I think it was 30, but it was enough so there would be just enough to pay Reality Craig. Like, we were
Nice.
like, put every penny you have to Reality Craig and 2 porta potties, and we'll do it again. And so
And
Craig showed
Reality
up.
Clegg does the visuals just for context for
Yeah.
Bring Your Love.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
super, super incredible.
Insane stuff.
Like projection mapping onto the stage. It looks really sweet.
And so our very first investment in the festival was to get like projection visuals, proper stage.
Nice.
And so that was like a high priority since the start. Craig showed up with a few pieces that he just had and just screwed them on, and it was all just plain white. So me and my buddy showed up with some paints and some cutters and stuff, and like kind of cut it, decorated into a stage. Like it just sort of looked like a temple because of how we put it up. So it
Yeah.
ended up being the temple stage just because it was like the handful of free pieces that he put up and that we kind of cut into
Yes.
place. But it's then been totally resurfaced. Like there's no surviving pieces, but that's like it all just sort of happened with us working with what we've got.
It's amazing humble beginnings, and it's crazy how like
It
just
was
things come
literally-
together and become what it is just with what you have.
Like until 2018, the budget was whatever you have in your pocket. If you want to get it, go ahead, and maybe you'll get your money back.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, it started to roll a little bit better, but yeah, it was definitely the most humble beginnings you can come.
And even like so even our heart, like our heart logo, it wasn't even originally made for us at all. Like it was literally it was made for a party that just gets thrown at a friend's house. Shambhala, which is like the year they couldn't have Shambhala, they started throwing like parties.
Okay,
there.
I saw some social media stuff because I think that you guys posted or that Jesse posted.
Yeah, it's just like a small get together in the country of just like
It was a great time.
a super
Yeah,
good
it looked
time.
cool.
And Blair just like, oh, this one time he's like, oh, I just saw this thing online. I'll make a heart. He brought the heart and like it was so sick. I was like, this is such a great piece. And then from there, it's like, yeah, you guys can have it. Like it's like not. It's gonna get way more use with you guys. Like, cool. We started using it. I was like, this is such a sick design. What if we just make it the logo? And
it's
it's just
really
like,
a nice piece.
it wasn't even like ever a thought out thing of like, oh, this is what the logo should be. But it just like becomes what it is, and that kind of makes it even more special. I find.
Makes sense. Sorry if I'm talking too far away from the mic.
No worries. I think
I tend
it's
to
good.
lean back.
Yeah, especially in those chairs. We should put this up a bit better, but I think it's better now that we have like 3 mics instead of 2, so we should be solid. That's amazing. Yeah, so one of my first Bring Your Loves too was like I think the 3rd one, and it was like it was like $30 and super smoothly ran, and the energy is just fantastic. Of just like had multiple stages and just such good vibes all around. Great setup, good tenting, good just like. as Josh would say, is like has no right to be this good. And it was like such a good time, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And now I love seeing it grow to even more mainstream audience and other people getting involved. To what I don't even know how many people did you have like this previous time?
The last time, I think, in terms of total people on the grounds, there was probably close to 700.
Wow.
So it's doubled in the last 2 years. Obviously, that one COVID year, we couldn't have real numbers. We had significantly reduced, and it's very lucky that we even were able to have it.
Yeah.
We did everything legal by the book, but you can't really measure growth by that one because we were capped at 200, and there's no way that we were going to legally sell an extra ticket, so we have no idea what might have sold that year.
Yeah.
But the latest one, was a really good indicator of the growth. And yeah, thank you for noticing. Thank you for saying that. It's definitely been priority number one since the start has been people's experience, campus experience. It's not, there's definitely quite a few shows that you see that are still put on by a business. And there's a lot of corner cutting for the sake of profits where people will have an okay experience, but they might have really long waits and long inconveniences, poor access to whatever it is, water, amenities, shade, whatever, you name it. So we definitely have always taken philosophy over profits with that. And I'm glad that was noticeable. That means a lot. That means that it's being noticed.
100%. Yeah. And it's really helping grow the brand and just getting, I just want to get that experience out there more because more people should find out about it. It's really, really cool.
And there's a cultural shift happening in Manitoba, I think, where people are a lot more open to this kind of idea. Similar to, I was very much a caricature of Winnipeg when I went to Shambhala and the way that things were when the band scene was a bit more lively here. For obvious COVID reasons, it's simmered down, but overall, there's just less of a band culture, less bands coming together, largely because of the uprising of the DJ culture and DJ shows and stuff.
Yeah. Been crazy. I've also always noticed that Manitoba was a crazy DIY culture of setting up your own festivals or setting up your own things in the country. And I think it's partly cheap Long McQuaid rentals and a lot of people having space in the country. So many cool things pop up, and then it's amazing to just see something grow to the next level where it's now it's legit. You're charging actual festival fees and actually providing a full comprehensive experience that's where someone that isn't just super niche into it can also be enjoy the whole experience, so
and that's very much another one of our focuses is to give this appeal to people that aren't necessarily already super into raving or festivaling. That's able to be enjoyable for people for a number of reasons, number of facets.
Fantastic. And then I'm not sure if this is more recently, but you've been putting on the Funky Town shows. How did that come about, and what's that experience been like?
Funky Town, I was trying to get more people on board with what I was doing for quite a while, and they kept saying no. They kept saying, sure, do your own event. And I was like, oh, fuck, I guess. And then I remember pitching it and people being like, don't do that. So I was like, okay.
All the signals were, all the signs were there.
That's definitely it. That's, when I started DJing, I was like, I'm going to put a bunch of rock and roll and do a bunch of weird genres and stuff. And I'm like, no.
No, don't. Do what everyone else is doing.
You gotta do it for yourself. Fuck them.
So eventually it finally got off the ground. There was definitely quite a few kinks with just trying to get the venues and the bookings and stuff and eventually getting people on board. But luckily through the festival, I got to know more and more people within the scene. Eventually finding enough performers and stuff that were into, that had a desire to actually want to develop this sort of thing, that we could make it effectively run. And then it happened 1 year, and then there was the COVID lockdowns and stuff. So we had to switch online for a bit. But we were back in full force in 2021 and had a really good event in December.
And the concept is to bring in disco and funky music, have a whole night kind of curated around
that.
It's
very much funky, kind of modern rave. There there's a sort of pseudo genre within the rave world, but it's really more of a, I guess, vibe or groove might be the word. Is in this sort of funky DJ world. I keep looking at the light for some reason.
Do it. Yeah, look into the light. Go into the light.
Embrace the light. Within the sort of very developed funky DJ scene in the UK and Australia, somewhat on the West Coast as well, it's very common to have a lot of genres in a set.
Yeah.
Whether you're seeing Crafty Cuts or Feature Cast or Neon Steve or Decline or
A-Skills
EZ
too.
or A-Skills, whatever.
Yeah.
WBBL, very K-Lab as well. Very often they'll start with some glitch hop and they'll move into house and they'll move into garage and breaks and maybe even dubstep and then drum and bass. Getting faster and faster. There's a whole lot of room for different kinds of juggling. There's a whole lot of rooms for different kinds of mixes. There's a lot of room for either scratching or instruments and stuff like that. And a lot more use of old music. The other sort of sub-departments that I see in raves tend to be somewhat insular. So there's a house scene, and like you'd go to the Dirty Bird camp out and you're going to get pretty much only house.
Yeah.
And there's drum and bass, and you got the hardcore drum and bass heads, and you get the drum and bass stage, and they go and they just give her the whole time. A lot of times it gets coupled with dubstep, but that's kind of the idea. Similarly with things like World Beats and Halftime, and so they very much tend to stay within that and say, this is new music, and we use new music forms of production, and occasionally you get an old remix of something, but it's generally everything that's new is what exists, and the old is the old. Whereas in the funky world, all music that exists still exists just as much, and you can use it in ways and embrace it with modern tech and do things the same way that in the 60s, 70s, a whole bunch of old blues songs became rock songs because the new technology, the new types of bands, new approach allowed for it. So I'm very much kind of trying to promote this sort of scene within Winnipeg because I think there is quite a bit of crowd appeal for it. There just hasn't been a whole lot of performer embrace of it, but it's definitely growing now. There's a few events popping up, Funky Town being one of them. And yeah, so I'm not really sure how to classify that, if it's a genre or if it's what to call
It's
it.
a vibe.
Like when you were at Funky Town, what genre did we play?
Yeah.
Like there was a guy who played mostly glitch hop and drum and bass, and there was one there's mostly new disco, and I played whatever 8 genres. Like everyone's is pretty different.
It has you're right. It has like a funky groove kind of consistent element to it, right? It's not like gonna hear techno or anything like that. It has like some sort of, I don't know how to define the groove or the funk.
How do you define the funk?
How do you find the funk? But it does
funk is
have
in
like
your soul.
that. It has some of those elements of those classic disco beats and into it, whether it is a D&B or like a breakbeats kind of genre or like whatever you might call the genre itself. It definitely has that kind of funky feel. And then the experience itself was like super. Well, like outside just the music, like the light up dance floor, like super kind of this retro vibe, the disco balls, like just like a really cool, like, I don't know, over the top funky vibe to it. So yeah, it was super cool. And I think you're right. There's so much space for that kind of music.
And you can reach a lot of non-ravers because you give them a familiar bouncing point.
Exactly.
Because, with human taste in general, a lot of times it's not the fact that something new, people don't always have a problem trying something new. It's the sharp transition from the new thing that they're trying from what it is they're used to. If it's way too foreign, then you just tend to react to it as a foreign element.
Yeah.
So if you're able to transition people with common elements, you're able to get people to try totally different kinds of food, just like music.
I agree. I think that's why I love that you're creating that space within Winnipeg, because I think what you were saying before is like such a classic band culture in Winnipeg, and it's very more like folk festy rock. People still really love country music in Manitoba, and I think a lot of times they go to an EDM show and they just hear bleep 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 music, and they're like, I can't even understand this. This just sounds like foreign noise to me. But incorporating classic elements of music are what really is going to bring in, I think, Winnipeg culture to a future scene, to dance music into EDM.
And then even outside of just funk, like a long-standing element of music that is getting washed over by a lot of DJs is singing and vocals.
Yes.
Is still so important psychologically to people. That's not a cultural thing that just came about. People have been singing since the start
It's also
of music.
soulful. It's like emotional. And I think sometimes it's hard to find emotion in break beats and
Well, yeah, but so
and like, you know what I
within
mean?
every department in electronic music, there's all kinds of music that has all kinds of either singing or leads, vocal tracks, saxophone, a lead synth, whatever. A lead element that still gives people the experience that all music has always had in the past, whether it was a
Totally agree.
folk with a singer or, choirs dancing around a fire, whatever. A lot of people have abandoned that for the sake of new music where they have just beats, and you are going to alienate a lot of people naturally with that because to a lot of people they're missing a psychological element of communication.
Like emotion. I think
Words
it's so emotional.
so you can get the same effect from a sample of a person giving a speech that you can vocal. You'll get a bit of a different feeling from people because singing does invoke emotion. A person who's singing really strongly does give you some experience, but you can still communicate in timing and stuff with the music with the person emoting in a speech just as much. There's a gigantic amount of communication there that you don't want to lose. And there's a reason why almost no instrumental bands have ever written any timeless music. It does happen.
Rarely.
It
Yeah, it is
certainly does.
rare.
Words have been important to humanity since the human brain has been what it is. So you don't want to throw that away. It's something that is actually paramount to the way that I mix is always leads, and as soon as a lead is out, I'll mix a new lead in. It's kind of a way you can sort of sneak elements into each other.
And that's a really fascinating point, especially how we've been structuring our events. Like we found a really good crescendo with our main stage, and it really starts with like a lot of lighter vocal house, and with the same concept of like people want to try new things, but if you lead them with like the more familiar stuff, like the pop, our way in for at least for a main stage is like the poppier vocal house, and people get to sing along, and it's more like a more common experience for the average goer, and then that becomes eventually like harder stuff with less vocals as the night goes on, and then the after party becomes way more techno, where it's like just the weirdest shit, but like you can ease people into it if you kind of bring them in like a common sharing point. And I thought that was a great point where it's like we have been like using voice and singing particularly to communicate as a society. So it's definitely important to bring that into these kind of different environments where most people aren't kind of hearing that.
Well, and it can be a really fun tool within DJing as well, because a lot of times a huge hit, let's say house track, like a Fisher song or something like that. A lot of times that song is going to do a lot for you just because it's so popular and it's such a great beat. It also has a whole ton of space where you could add an element, where you see a ton of great DJs. You can very easily kind of make that into your own just by finding a good rap vocal or a good acapella or something that you throw onto it. And it's often why you'll see Fisher's actually probably the perfect example. You'll see Fisher played by Fatboy Slim, and you'll see Fisher played by EZ, and you'll see Fisher played by Claude on Stroke, and there'll be always some sort of different little other sample or Neon Steve, whoever, on top of the song, because it has so much space. A lot of times I think that is deliberate for the sake of DJs beyond the actual production.
That's interesting.
They're creating a song that is almost a full song, but if you get the right kind of extra vocal on top of it, suddenly it's madness.
That's so funny, because I felt that about Fisher's like last hit. No, after losing it, that one with the workout,
Like Just Feels Tight.
Just Feels Tight. I was like, this sounds like half a song. And like I waited for like then the DJ City remixes came out. I was like, and it felt like it was finally complete. But it just felt like a half release, like a good beat. It just felt empty.
Well, and
it's
an
like
awesome way
interesting to that perspective on it, that he's doing it on purpose.
An awesome way to spice up the tech house as well is to just find a whole bunch of 90s hip hop, bunch of speed rap and stuff like that, because so much tech house gives you the room for it, and a lot of times people are totally receptive to it, but unless it's given to them, they're not even aware that it could bring that sort of next dimension.
Yeah,
I agree.
It reminds me, so like on our last event, I dropped like, it's Shake It. You know Shake It? It's like this really popular tech house song on TikTok. It's like "Drrrr, shake your ass" and it drops. It's almost a meme at this point, but then
I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah, and it was a mashup with like the 50 Cent vocal, and it was just like borderline memey, but honestly amazing at the same time. People lost it, and it was like really, really solid to just see that kind of shit coming out, where you can now relate to it even more by having a vocal you understand and like a super popular tech house track and like these mashups. So
And so
Yeah.
the principles of music still apply to every single type of musical performance, still operating on the same principles, whether you're a folk singer sitting with a guitar or whether you're a scratch DJ dropping heaters, psychologically, everyone still has a human brain and 2 ears. No, sorry, not everyone has to have 2 ears. But generally, your hearing, you've evolved to hear in this way. That's the way your brain is going to process things. And, most of the things that make good music, most of the elements are functioning under the same principles. They just fit under different palettes, the same way that you have culinary skills are using the same general principles, but you might have certain kinds of meat that mix better with certain kinds of spices and vegetables, etc., versus others.
and different contexts as well, right? Like at a folk fest, you don't want to drop the heaters while everyone's sitting down and chilling. While it's like you're at a club, you want to hear stuff that makes you dance, right? So it's like just picking the right stuff for the right context or the time of night, etc.
That's the best lesson actually that John Skeen ever gave me when I was still a acoustic performer. Actually,
Shout out John
he
Skeen.
said, definitely shout out. He said, remember that the reason people are there is the reason people are there. And you might be able to have influence on that, but you're not going to change the reason people are there. So people are there for dinner and to talk. You're not going to just be super loud and play a bunch of fucking heaters and
Everyone's gonna stop
force their
eating.
attention onto you.
Yeah.
Occasionally the magic happens and you do exactly the right things, but mostly you have to give them what they want and you might eventually be able to coax them into it.
Yeah.
So if people are at a place to sit and have a banquet and you want them to dance, don't try to force them to dance.
Yeah.
Very much like you said, contextual. And then you can kill it in that way by giving them what they want and still doing your thing.
Yeah, the great background music for talking can make conversations way better and like
Just don't
contextualize
force
it.
people to do, like, if you're trying to force the crowd to do what you want them to do, then you're there for yourself.
Yeah.
And performance in music and just art in general, it's very like a two-way relationship, right? It's like you think you're the artist, it's all about like you and what you want to play, but it really is about reception to a criticism, to a critic, to an ear.
If you're playing literally only music to yourself for your whole life, there's actually no point.
Yeah,
Music
people say
only
like they
exists-
pride that, but
Like
it's not.
literally, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it,
Exactly.
that's
yeah.
exactly what you are.
Yeah,
You're only going to play yourself. Music
That's my
only
DJ name.
exists
Fallen
as
Tree.
As-
It's not bad. Music only exists as a communication, right?
exactly. Yes.
And so you have to
Conversation in a way.
Yeah, and so there has to be some sort of connection to the outside world from yourself. It's the same way we're talking about. Do you believe in physics? If you want to get super intense into quantum physics, then you would say every single person creates their own reality while existing in a second duality, which is the conscious collective. Because there's a whole bunch of shit that everybody agrees on enough that it's in some sort of reality that's outside yourself.
Yeah.
The great success of life is being able to preserve yourself and fully connect with that other duality in some sort of middle ground. That is where all of the best music is always going to be, is when the artist is able to preserve themselves in a place where they're also reaching everybody else.
Translating to you.
Not everybody else, but reaching people is where.
Wow.
Sorry.
I would love to
That's
just
beautiful.
compliment a DJ and be like, wow, you crossed the quantum chasm and connected with everyone on another
duality.
dimension. You really...
Well, what's
Shared
beautiful
every-
about music is like the universal nature of it, and it's a language outside of our language that is deeper and that connects all of us together. Like, and I guess what I love about house music especially is I feel like there's no cultural barriers. Like you people have people using classic sounds of every culture and every different type of dance music to incorporate into house sounds, and it's literally anyone can do it. It crosses all language barriers, all cultural barriers. At the end of the day, it's just about the beat that makes you move and makes you emotional, expresses to you. some kind of emotional resonance.
Nice.
Yes, true.
So bringing this like musical background into, I guess, a fairly new experience of doing events, what have you learned in that process?
I wish I could just fucking do music.
Events are a bitch.
I love doing festivals, don't get me wrong. I love the amazing team that we have for putting on events and stuff. It's a whole lot of fun designing the stages. It's pretty fun putting together the stages.
Yeah.
There's always quite a bit of physical strife and unfortunate complications, but the end result's
Blood,
always
sweat,
great.
and
We got a
tears.
super great team. Yeah, exactly. That's part of it. Is like there's definitely a lot of things that I hope we can eventually pay other people to do that I currently have to do for the sake of budget. And a lot of things that really it's just growing pains and frustrations from having been relatively new at it. So you're probably just kind of making a bitchy comment about it there. But you know, certainly my main thing is performing at shows. But again, there wasn't going to be a Funky Town unless I made a Funky Town.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But sorry, as far as what I've learned, I guess, is just to appreciate how much other people are able to contribute in all kinds of different ways, including musical performance, but just how much more there can be to making sure people have a good experience at a musical show. Just by making sure to be tight on things that could otherwise take away. So I guess, and this directly comes from Shambhala, actually. After all the rave stuff that I was talking about, the main thing that sticks out at Shambhala is how much the raver experience is at the top of the list. You know, we talked about VIP stuff yesterday. Like, it's not rent a VIP booth at Shambhala so you can go sit down and rest. You just go sit down and rest at the fucking bench.
Yeah.
You don't have to rent the balcony. You go on the balcony because you just can go there.
Nice, yeah.
There's shade everywhere. There's places to sit everywhere. There's places to, get cool off and all kinds of shit. Like,
amenities.
even within
festival.
each stage, you could be there comfortably for 12 hours and, take rest and get food and get drinks and stuff. So yeah, putting on events was majorly an eye-opener as to, how much little things you can just, just be sharp on, and it just majorly brings up people's ability to focus on the good parts of the show just by sort of avoiding the little bad ones that had just become status quo, I guess.
Huge, yeah.
You guys are really good for that as well, by the way. I've talked about it to you personally before as well.
I appreciate that.
But
Thank you.
definitely the Always Dali events, you absolutely can notice a good commitment to people getting their money's worth, to people having, what they need to have a good time, not just a show and then pay us for the show. And I think that's really important. Part of why there's this cultural shift in Winnipeg is because groups now are actually doing it for the sake of the people on the dance floor rather than for the sake of the wallets of the people.
Yeah, to create the best experience. And you brought up a good point of like just appreciating everyone involved, because there's huge collaborative efforts to put any of these things on. And there's so many little aspects involved, especially like when you leave a venue and do like a festival, now you're worrying about like porta potties and water and all these little amenities and stuff. It's like, it's so important to get right to make part of the experience. And yeah, it's like, I remember in business school, it's like, what's one of the most stressful jobs? Like top 3 was like event planner. Because it's just like you have so much stuff. You have one really big deadline. And it's like, there's so many things that you're not an expert on, but you have to like help manage, and so many things that can come up and go wrong.
And you have a very varied labor force, especially within the festivals. You have some people that are pros and that are under contract, and a lot of people that are helping out, and some people that are paid, stipends that probably deserve more, but you're still growing, and it's like a semi-volunteer, semi-paid person. Then you also have a whole ton of volunteers, and then there's the very necessary backbone of Wooks.
Necessary backbone?
Oh yeah,
Okay. What's the necessary backbone?
The festival backbone
Creating the
in
vibe?
Canada is Wooks, if not around the world.
Honestly,
Wooks need to be apprecited because they're so important.
Slow down. Well, can you explain to the audience what a wook is? What is a wook to you?
Okay, first of all, let's clear up the fact that I identify as a Wook.
that was the most important question I could ask you.
I'm not going to try to deny it.
Honestly, Wooks are the best vibes. That's why they get away with it.
I can't say that I'm as big of a Wook as some. I don't have that much hemp weave. But,
There's a minimum quota.
this is certainly not a dig at Wooks, is what I'm saying. This is me probably speaking mostly of my people. And like, if I'm a Shambhala, I deliberately in getting into the thickest, wookest possible part of it to just be in the wook.
Please, I need a definition now.
not-
I need to know your perspective.
This is,
with more words that are just wook. You just like
The
wear
wookiest
wookie
wook.
things and you're like, oh,
it's
wook.
coming from a place of love when I say this is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like if you smell like patchouli, that's a start for sure. Depending on how many hemp weave hoodies you own is a very strong indicator. Base nectar hat is one of the main Wook uniform items.
Okay.
Like the base nectar hat with the freaking base
Yeah,
drop
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
That's huge. The number one ultimate Wook identifier is definitely dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of Rastas with dreadlocks as well. You can tell the difference between a Rasta and a Wook. It is not difficult.
Okay.
If you know somebody who will do a gig for you in exchange for whippets, that's a Wook.
Yo, shut up, promoters. I'm actually a Wook, so. hit me
Looking
up.
for paying whippets.
If a person will ask to crash on your couch in exchange for ketamine, that's a Wook.
I in my experience with Wooks, it's like the stereotype is that they show up with like no money or they don't provide anything, I guess besides maybe drugs, and like people will just give them things. And I always had like, it was always such a negative connotation about Wooks when like I would go to EDC and people would call people Wookie. But then like I remember hanging out with a guy and he was like the best vibe. I was hanging with a UR and he had like nothing on him and I was just giving him drugs. I was like providing for him and just vibing with him. And I was like, that dude was a total Wook. I didn't even realize it. Just because he was just the best vibe to be around. Like, those people are a necessary part of the culture because they're just great energy.
They're usually super charismatic.
They're super charismatic. They're the best people you want around you. So you just give them stuff. And it's like, it's not like they're out there like, oh, please, like, I need your shit. I'm just like, I'm harshing off of you. It's like, no, like, they're so great. You just want to give them things. Because they're such great people.
It's like within drugs, you're always going to get some people who are just kind of trying to mooch, you know, that's
I don't feel that.
There's definitely Wooks that do that too. But really, by definition, it's like the festival hippies eventually evolved into rave hippies, and those basically became Wooks. It's not
Rave
really,
hippies is probably a good way to
It's the
kind of sum it
Pokemon
up.
evolution. It's a final form.
Yeah, like you're not really following the Grateful Dead around in your van, but you probably live in a van and pick flowers for part of the year if you're a serious Wook, you know, and you go to like 25 festivals a year.
Devote.
I've slept in my van
Calling
a lot
them
of
out.
times. That's again.
Call them out.
That's not a chirp. I sleep in my van sometimes.
Yeah.
That life seems like a
Yeah,
dope vibe, actually.
it's a different. So you were saying they're the backbone of.
Yeah, so Wooks, most festival volunteers for a big festival are Wooks. The average person cannot take 3 weeks off for one festival. And you need people to work like 10 days before the festival. The average person could spend $400 on a festival or work like 40 to 50 hours for $400 worth of a ticket. Like that's actually a shitty deal. Like Wooks are willing to work for festival tickets. So you need those people. Like there's nobody else available. So there's a whole ton of people like who you would probably call Wooks who are on a 3-year traveling trip where they, you know, have an RV for 3 years and they're doing like 1 million festivals and they do whatever.
Sounds like a really cool experience.
Yeah, honestly, I'm jealous. I'm just jealous
All
of
kinds of
them.
people with
That's-
really
corporate
interesting,
slaves.
cool stories and stuff. Yeah, so
my
a lot of
job.
times Wooks are people who are just living their life and just going about it
Awesome.
outside of the ordinary sort of mold, and often have, you know, lots of really good experiences and stuff. They're very, very important for festival volunteering. They also buy a lot of festival tickets. They tend to be really, really into like the niche rave scenes tend to be very strong with Wooks. They tend to be very, very committed to, you know, let's say Bass Nectar or Tipper or, you know, Excision, whatever.
Quite beautiful. Like we should do like woke awareness month. no one's giving them the respect that they deserve. They're the backbone. So
We have a King of the Wooks award usually at Bring Your Love.
wow, beautiful.
That's
one way to.
amazing.
That's one way to go about it.
Like,
One year it was me.
That's
Please
beautiful.
feed the Wooks, actually.
It's
Please
usually
do
just
feed
feed
them.
the Right now, it's
They need your love.
Amazing. Great. So what do you see as the future of Funky Town, Bring Your Love, or yourself in music ways?
Bring Your Love, we want to grow and get bigger and better every year. You know, we set a philosophy in place right from the start, so it's really easy to make growth decisions because we can always apply these sort of philosophies. You know, we want the best possible show and the best possible camper experience, and as well as, you know, progress and proliferation within the culture, you know, safe space, consent, acceptance. Like, I don't remember where I came up with this, so I can't say that this is the Webster's Dictionary definition of a rave, but I remember hearing that the definition of a rave is really just a place where you're going to get super loud music, probably from DJs, you know, because you do see bands and stuff at raves, but super loud music, and you expect strangers to treat you just like anybody else. That's really the
Nothing but
only
love.
two universal things that I've seen across raves. You might see super aggressive bass headbangers, or you might see straight candy ravers that are only into above and beyond. But you expect strangers to not be assholes, and you expect to not be assholes to strangers, and you know, you at least be respectful, relative, as opposed to a lot of times at a nightclub where it's kind of elbows out, and you know,
They're
people
the
get
complete
punched, and you
opposite.
try to
Yeah,
spend the most
atmosphere.
money, and you listen to fucking whoever the rainbow haired rapper guy, and
6ix9ine.
but yeah, so
Calling you out, 6ix9ine.
Where you at? Fly
you
out of
at?
Winnipeg. Kashi, what's up?
he's very little, I heard, in person. He's so small.
I wouldn't talk shit about him.
Yeah.
Maybe as a rep.
Oh my god.
He probably has guns. But yeah, so anyways, that's the definition of raving. We really want to grow that in Manitoba. We really are about the idea that Manitoba can have good parties.
100%.
As you guys also are
Besides
really
socials.
contributing. You know, we want to also proliferate the idea that Folk Fest doesn't have to be the only big festival in Manitoba.
Yeah.
And that we want to shine a light on the new technologies, this new way of partying, and sort of kind of, you know,
Beautiful.
grow the culture, like I said probably a handful
Yes.
of times already right now. And Funky Town, same thing. We really want to proliferate, want to empower DJs who are into that sort of thing to really lean into their thing. It's very much an individuality performance style. Yeah, absolutely. Funky Penguin.
Thank you so much for creating that
We've
space
had
again
Funky
too,
Penguin in
because
there, and definitely you'll be back.
yeah, always Dale and you guys are like very focused on that, and I think that's what really will again expand this scene to people who are outside of the EDM scene, you know, outside of the.
And so it's going to be
Really
our next
accessible.
stage also at Bring Your Love. We need a certain amount of growth before there's a point to having 3 stages. But that will be the next one. So likely the tempo will go more into house and techno kind of thing, and the funky stuff will sort of migrate into its own place. Right now we juggle it all because it's still, you know, we're still a growing festival and it totally fits fine. But eventually I think there'll be a space for each one.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And we're really about the belief that the market for these kind of events is so much bigger than people realize. Like there's places like Cowboys and I don't know, OV that are packed and so on, filled with people that would also appreciate more of that kind of plur festival kind of experience, even if it's not the most mainstream music that they see.
Well, that's why Friday was so huge and it was really impressive, was because it was packed. People in a club who, a lot of them had probably been to a lot of ordinary club nights with the sparklers and the VIPs and the punching and the fucking...
No, I've spoke to multiple people who were talking about how dissatisfied they were with club culture and feeling left out and just kind of like empty.
Yeah, and those same
it's
people
sad.
were at Dr.
It's sad.
Fresh having a great time. A bunch
Yeah.
of them probably never listened to Dr. Fresh before.
Yeah.
You know, that's
beautiful,
probably
actually.
pretty far away from what they're into, but, you know, because how big Panda is, quite a few people have now heard Bass House and stuff within Winnipeg. He's helped quite a bit along with you guys, sort of bridge the divide with the club culture. But yeah, all these people, like you said, that are at Cowboys and stuff, could have been the exact same people that were at Dr. Fresh, and suddenly their eyes are open to this whole different thing where they're in the same place, but it's really all about the music and the dance floor. It's not all about spending the most money and doing the nastiest tasting shots and calling someone a bitch for not taking as many shots as you. Drink more.
I think the old ways.
Like, it didn't feel aggressive at all. The Dr. Fresh felt quite chill. It felt like
beautiful.
they were really about the show.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It was really, really great, and I agree with that. Amazing. Any more shout-outs or anything you want to make on behalf of Bring Your Love or anything like that?
Shit.
You guys need volunteers for stuff?
We definitely are looking for volunteers right now. If you want to check out our socials, we are going to have quite a few call-outs in the near future. We are looking for DJs. DJ applications are open. We are looking for volunteers, all kinds of volunteers, whether it's you want to do cleanup, you want to do stock, you want to greet people at the gate, whatever. We need all kinds.
Calling all works.
Calling all works. We appreciate
Calling all works. That should be your promo.
We absolutely accept and welcome works. We have no negative connotations towards works.
Good. I don't either now.
In fact, I again probably would be considered.
No, the best people.
Yeah. Great. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for giving a little shout out to the festival and everything.
Of course. No, more than happy to have you, and thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for
Make
coming.
sure to come
Thanks
to the
for
next
inviting.
Always Dale
event. We're doing some
which is,
Transformers May 14th.
yes.
Yeah, collaboration with like Stephen Hua. Should be Hollywood hype back to back. Stephen Hua. How could you miss that?
OMG.
How could you mix that?
I will be there.
Yes. And yeah, tons of more events coming up this summer. It's gonna be really crazy. I'm super excited. Bring the Love is August 4th weekend.
August 4th to 8th. Yeah.
Nice.
So we got Thursday to Sunday.
So you don't want to miss that. Tickets are on sale
Right now. Yeah.
Amazing.
Just go to the website, go to the Facebook, go to Instagram.
I'm telling you, it's an amazing vibe. You're not going to want to miss it if you haven't been before. And yeah, we're looking to do more stuff with you guys and see where it goes. And thank you guys all for tuning in.
Yeah, thank
Follow
you.
us on Instagram,
that is the
TikTok. Yeah, that is the camera over there.
YouTube, everything.
Yeah, so always Dale on across all platforms.
Follow me like across the street if you want to.
Yeah,
Just,
honestly.
follow- stalk me if you want.
There's on pod.
honestly.
Yeah, honestly, you should
Well,
come
that's
to our
what people
house.
say when they're talking about follow me.
Yeah, they're like actually
just like follow me
stalk
around.
me.
My life isn't that
Oh,
interesting.
I've just been looking on my phone like an idiot.
Yeah.
Getting some mileage in there.
Yeah, you go peek into people's windows if you really want to follow them. So, peeking into our window. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and see you guys next time. Mwah.
Ride with them.